Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Kashrus, presented by the Kashrus Awareness Project in conjunction with Torah Anytime. Today, I am honored to be joined by Rabbi Moshe Kaufman of the KVH in New England. Thank you, Rabbi Kaufman. It's wonderful to have you here.
Wonderful to be here.
KVH is in New England. That's the Boston territory, right?
With a big city in New England. So.
Okay. So it's good to have you here at the Let's Talk Kosher Studios all the way from Boston. And I'm very excited to talk today about summer camps. The summer is approaching. Many of our viewers are going to be sending their children to sleepaway camp. Let's start with the camp kitchen. If I'm a parent and I'm sending my child to sleepaway camp, what should I know beforehand? What should I be doing? Is there anyone I should be reaching out to? And at the end of the day, is someone really going to be able to make an impact as a parent from afar on the kashrus of their children's camps?
So, again, like I said, wonderful to be here. You posed several questions. We'll break it down. When you talk about a camp kitchen, we're talking about huge operations. Sometimes they're serving 1,000 people a day, some of the camps.
Sure.
It's possible more. There were camps that I visited that were serving 1,000 people or more a day. Other ones are serving 500, 600 people, and this is day after day after day.
We're talking about breakfast, lunch, supper,
and then special events. You talk
special
about
events, malava malkas,
grand
barbecues,
banquets and whatnot at the end.
Sure.
Some of these are operated by caterers who cater all year round.
Mm-hmm.
Would you get a caterer for your child's bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah, vart, or whatnot? Assuming it's a frum guy, what could be wrong? He's got a frum kitchen, what could be wrong? And yet, at camps, would we do that? Would we treat the camp the same way we would treat a caterer for our child's bar mitzvah? You got to make a bar mitzvah. You got to send your kid to camp. I ask someone, what's the difference? And the truth is, I put this question out to the public. I'm guilty of this myself, and I thought to myself, yet last year as a kashrus professional, I don't know if when I was tapped to, we'll talk more about this camp initiative further on, but I asked the question on a kashrus professional's WhatsApp chat. I said, does anyone look into what camp was my first year sending a child to camp? Mm-hmm. And it was like, it hit me. I was sending my child to camp. I know nothing about the kashrus, and this is what I do day in, day out. So to fault people who don't do it day in, day out, and they're doing it, it just becomes by habit, things we do. Mm-hmm. You ask what they should ask, we'll circle back to that, and said, can it make a difference? Like anything. People ask me all the time. This is in the world of consumerism at large. I tell people, write in. They have questions or comments, write us. Email us, call us. People, it's not going to make a difference. Companies have formulas. And even if it's a Hamish problem, they don't have a formula, but they know it in the back of their mind. They have formulas. For every person who asks a question or complains about a specific item, there's 100 people who don't. And they have formulas for this, professional companies. They have analytics for this. So the question is, can you make a difference? Of course. Yourself? No. But when everyone starts, when consumers start demanding something, that's when things change. That's when things make a difference. For good, for bad, in between, in general, that's how consumerism works. That's supply and demand. So can you make a difference? Yes. Consumers have to demand what they want. If people don't want proper cash, I would never accuse anyone of that. But the same way, if you don't care about a specific item, you don't care about anything, you're not going to complain about it. When you want something, if someone wants something, they feel I'm not going to make a difference, they're wrong. Mm-hmm. Hands down. Ask any company in the world. They want to hear from you? Of course they want to hear from you. Can I get XYZ product kosher? That's how you get it kosher. So what can people ask? I mean, think of what you would ask if you were looking into a product being kosher. And I'm sure you'll have questions for me. But in general, is there a kashrus plan? You don't expect people who are not kashrus professionals. We go in there with our checklist. And I'll say this. People will ask, well, of course, you know what to ask. One of the important things that when I visit any facility, whether it's a camp or put camps aside because we haven't done that much, I go to a factory, a new caterer, anything like that, restaurant, we have checklists of questions we ask and say, what do you mean? You do this all the time. What do you need it for? Those checklists are super important because you will inevitably forget things. Mm-hmm. And I'm guilty of that myself. You go in somewhere, you think you're going to wing it, you're just going to do it. You go in without the checklist, without that list of things that you need to check off, and as soon as you're leaving, you get on the road to leave, and you're like, I forgot to check into that thing. Mm-hmm. And then it leads to a phone call. Getting that done initially is key. So us having our professional list of, us having our questions to ask is very important. One basic thing a parent can ask, is there a plan of action for kashrus? Simple as that. Don't expect anything fancy. if a camp has hashgacha, matov manayim.
I was going to ask. We did an episode with Rabbi Nosson Dubin about yeshiva kitchens. Typically, yeshiva kitchens do not have a full-time mashgiach. Sometimes not even a part-time mashgiach. Assuming that the main chef is a frum yid, usually they'll be relying on him for ordering, intake, oversight, locking the kitchens and refrigerators, freezers, and so on. And I would assume, and I would love to hear from you, I would assume that the situation in camps is very similar in terms of setup to yeshivas, even though yeshiva kitchen is not around the clock, whereas a camp kitchen is more of that sort. What is the typical setup? You're saying a plan of action. Do camp kitchens normally have hashgacha? Do they have a mashgiach? Is there someone appointed to oversee the kashrus?
So that really varies from camp to camp.
What's the best scenario that you've seen? Let's
Best
focus on the
scenario
positive.
that I've seen. We're talking kitchens that were locked down and during the week was key card access only. Means you needed a swipe card to get in the kitchen.
Wow.
This was pretty hardcore because I know a lot of regular catering facilities and supermarket kitchens, they're not like that. But this place, to get into the kitchen building, so to speak, key card access. On Shabbos, there was a punch key. There was a manual punch key code key access to get in. One of my caterers, at one point we supervised a kosher kitchen at a hotel. I remember when the kashrus was being upgraded and they were in the process of repainting all the pans, it was all fleisha kitchen. They wanted it to just be distinguished from the non-kosher kitchen, a different floor, and everything we got painted really red and whatnot. And like the chef walked in there and he said it looked like a bloodbath. So he was shocked, and I was like, when I walk in the kitchen, we see a fleisha kitchen, we see a bloodbath, we're very happy. We're extremely happy.
Meaning that things are identified clearly.
Things are identified clearly, and that's one of the things that needs constant maintenance. You'll never find it perfect, not in any kosher scenario. Pretty good you'll find when it's maintained properly. You'll never find it perfect because by nature, this thing needs maintenance.
On one side, you have the card key access situation, which sounds like they really had the kitchen on lockdown. But I'm talking about as far as the hands-on kosher supervision. It's very nice that they have it locked. They're making sure that people aren't going in and out inappropriately. And it's not a free-for-all. But as far as the oversight of the kashrus, what do you see?
So you mentioned like distinguishing the two things. I'm actually going to segue from one to the next because I believe that those two go hand in hand. When you run a clean-cut, we call food service operation, when you run a tight kitchen, and you have kashrus in mind, you run a tight kashrus operation. So in this place, there was a designated mashgiach. I think he was the kitchen building manager. No issues with that. There was a plan in place. He knew what he was checking for. It was supplemented, I believe, with some campers, working campers, teen campers, who were supplemental mashgichim working in the kitchen. From chef, really knew the kashrus business. Everything was marked appropriately. They had a plan for Bishul Yisrael to prevent Bishul Akum. Again, there were certain minor touch-ups that you point out to someone, oh, there's a grill outside. That's obviously not as controlled scenario. That's not a controlled environment like the kitchen is. These are good points to point out to people that even in the best scenarios, there's room for improvement.
But I think what you're saying is a very important point. I want to point out, I'm sure there are people who are watching this, camp owners, administrators, head counselors. I'm sure they are. And some of them may be thinking to myself, you want me to add to my budget a full-time mashgiach? And the answer, if I'm understanding you correctly, is no. You just need a plan of action. Someone who's already on staff should be sat down and spoken to as the point man for kashrus in this camp. So am I headed in the right direction?
I can design a plan of kashrus for pretty much any camp, assuming they're on board with the physical aspects of what they need. Again, we came across places that want to use one kitchen for milchiks and fleishiks and cover this and double wrap this. Again, those are things you should not be doing on a mass scale like that because it's going to lead to problems. Just had a call recently about double wrapping food in mass to be served. And someone's going to tempt the food, someone's going to open it. It doesn't
work.
It works when you're in your private hotel room and you're in control. When you have 10 employees, 30 employees, that kind of operation stops working. So assuming you have the proper physical space set up, setting up a proper kashrus plan should not be costing a penny. Obviously supplies, you need a paint, you're going to buy spray paint, you're going to buy maybe change up some equipment, whatnot, minor stuff. But the actual plan of kashrus, as far as manpower goes, should not cost you any money.
Now I have to ask you, I asked you what the best scenario you saw was. What was the nightmarish scenario that you saw? Meaning that something that was unsustainable and something that you said, something really has to change.
that's multifaceted questions. So you have, sometimes the ball was just dropped and there were certain basics. Possibly, again, I don't want to give away what we saw where and whatnot. This was all very confidential. But there could be a Hilchos Shabbos thing, like, what went through someone's mind when they made the decision to do that? Sometimes it was an oversight. You can go to a camp and everything was pretty good, and then you found out some waiter, counselor had a key to go in and get Friday night shalom, and like,
You have issues of
did someone know
Chazara.
Chazara? Like, did someone know about this? That could be an oversight. And sometimes it's just a basic thing that someone overlooked, a very basic thing, or a swap over between milchiks and fleishiks and whatnot. And again, some camps are very receptive and said they made immediate tikkunim for such things.
Right.
They fixed these problems initially.
I'll give you an example that I remember hearing in a camp. Again, innocent mistake, just because people didn't know. They ordered grills for camp, poolside barbecues. No one even thought of toveling the grates.
Right.
It was a very, very basic thing. It came in a box. Someone put together the grills. Shalom al Yisrael, no one ever paid it. Just got lost in the shuffle. Is that a good example?
It's a very good example, and I'm glad you brought that up. And if someone came with Tvilas Kalim, and there were great poskim, and one of my Rabbi Kashrus, Rabbi Avram Jorvel, works for OU in Muncie. I'm very close with him. He's a Talmud in Kashrus from Dain Posen. And the Dain Posen, home the Ikra, caterers do not need a Tevel Kalim. I hope I'm quoting this correctly because I'm on camera now, but this has been reiterated to me over and over and over again. A lot of people don't hold to that. Someone comes and tells me, and some people hold of it, but tziruf, selling, having a geisha shutif and whatnot, whatever it is. Someone comes and tells me this is part of our plan of action. I have no issue with that. I'm not certifying you as a hashgacha. It was thought through. This was a decision made with the camp poskim. There's no problem with that. Whether everything's possible. So you brought up Tvilas Kalim. There's one example I'd point out that, yeah, someone made an oversight. But if someone came and said it was thought through, and this is the plan, this is why we're doing it, it needs thoughtfulness. That's what it needs. It needs
and then you're obviously trusting the halachic direction decision of the camp, which hopefully is being made in consultation with the camp's Mareh Asra. Hopefully they have one, right? And things like that. But that's why a camp needs a rav. They need a Mareh Derech to direct issues of halacha and hashkafa, right, or whatever the issue may be. So, any final words before we wrap up?
Final words, it's really, again, you can continue on with this, but just final words, I know we didn't even finish in terms of what can parents ask and not ask. I would say one of the things that came to me is that if you ask for if there's a kashrus plan in place, and the answer is, of course, we have a firm chef, or everyone's the mashgiach because the kitchen's a free-for-all, those are things you don't want to hear.
What you're doing is wonderful. And
it helps that I enjoy it. So.
And I could tell that you have that passion for what you're doing, which is why one of the things that makes you good at what you do. So, Rabbi Kaufman, thank you for being here, for discussing this important topic, and we hope to discuss it again.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you.